And now the chair recognizes Alan.
I'm here this morning to give you a 15 or 20 minute infomercial on a data source that I want to encourage each and every congregation to use. The Presbytery has been involved in it for a number of years, initially through the Synod Mission Project. Am I live? Could you advance slide? I'm not getting it. Maybe. But now, this last year, the Synod chose not to continue to fund it, and our Presbytery has taken over the cost of that. That step is deceptive. Thank you. So what MissionInsite is it is a incredible source of information about your communities, and what I want to do is just highlight some of the information that we can get from MissionInsite. If you initially log on, you'll be given an opportunity, and I want to encourage you. I'm not going to show you a whole lot of actual slides from the program itself, but they give you an opportunity here to either choose the legacy view or the newer view. I'm going to suggest you use the newer view, which is the top one, the next generation people view. It is a lot easier to navigate, and eventually the old one will fade away as they continue to bring it on. Once you've logged in, and you can log in free. If you need help, contact me at the end of the presentation. I'm going to give you a code number that you can do to log in yourself, but if you need help, please let me know. Once you get in, you give the opportunity of deciding the kind of things you want to do. The first one we're going to do is to talk a little bit about generating some demographic reports. And so you're given an opportunity to define the area you want. For today's presentation, I just chose to do a radius view. So you put in the address of your church, and you can choose the distance out. For today, I've done 2.5 miles and 5 miles just to kind of give us an idea. And so you also have the opportunity of doing a polygon, and where you'll click on that, and then you'll be given the opportunity to draw any shape you want to. So if you know that your community is a major barrier is that river or that interstate, you can choose that area. Where I like to use the polygon is not so much the initial demographic studies, but later on in some of the other work, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. The basic demographic reports give you three opportunity, an executive, a full, and a quick insight. I'm going to show you a little bit of the kind of information. So there we have shows you where in our area that would show. Now, you probably can't see the detail too well on this because of the size of our screen, but let me kind of give you some of the information that you would be seeing here. The first place is to talk about population change, school age change, the families with children, adult and educational attainment, but it shows you what's going on in your community, poverty levels, racial, ethnic group, religiosity. So it gives you some basic view about your community and the changes. Then it can give you a 10-year history of population, households, and families, and then it can break those down according to the census data for years past. So you can kind of see what's going on in your area. That's not all that helpful to me. Most of us are aware, but the real meat comes later. Then you can see the projection in terms of what they expect your community to be doing in the both history and future. In this case, it takes us out to 2027. Then you can break down by household types in the middle. Those with children, for example. Married couples, single mother, and single father with children. You can, down at the bottom, it tells you the households with children, the number of those. Really useful information if you're thinking about expanding your children's ministry. And with some of the tools I'll show you later, you could really make that fly. Average age of children and the 10-year projections. Here's the bottom one is the phase of life by 10-year increments. So you can see how many of your community are really retired. In Goshen, we have a big retirement center, Greencroft, that has a campus of a couple of thousand people. The tendency in our community is to believe that we're an older community. You look at the demographic statements and you see that that's just not true. You can break it down by blue collar types, by the level of education is the top one. Racial and ethnic diversity. We're predominantly white, but we have a rather significant Hispanic Latino community. And then the bottom one was the changes. Again, not to try to give you, the next one is an exciting one, I think, is the Mosaic type. Are people familiar with Mosaic Groups? I don't see but a single hand or two. You know how advertisers can pinpoint you and send you just the right interest groups for suggested magazines that you might want to buy, or you get ads for particular things. Mosaic Groups were created by the advertising community predominantly for marketing. There are 77 different segments of lifestyles and interests that the Mosaic Groups can do. When they want to send you information, and it's also used for voting by the parties, electoral parties, to be able to send ads to the right people, and they can tell the differences from your side of the street to the people on the other side of the street. And so there are 77 groups. You can learn what's around your church in your community, and then you can say, we could target this group because we have enough in common with them. And then you can look up, they give you information about describing the trends and the elements about that Mosaic group. And then there is an additional publication that they have written by a guy by the name of Tom Bandy, who was a church consultant for many years. And what Tom does is then take those Mosaic groups and looks at what are they looking for in a church. So you identify that we have a large segment of this particular Mosaic group, and then you can look in Tom Bandy and say, how can we reach out to them? It's really cool information. And I don't know about your churches, but our congregation has been shrinking for a number of years. We're going to be doing some really significant things. And again, this information alone is not all that, well, it's tremendously useful, but the new things they've added in the last year really make it approachable. Financial resources. I don't know if you're aware, but the people in marketing and big data know your financial situation. You know, we live in this incredibly diverse, complex world, and they have learned how to pigeonhole us and to identify us by all sorts of ways. Wouldn't it be wonderful to actually use that kind of data for a good purpose? They can tell you also about the religiosity, the issues that really drive people and make them exciting. This was the quick insight report. They have longer ones that have the same kind of information but more in depth, called the Full Insight and the Executive Insight, that give you some real capabilities of moving on. Going back, we can do other kinds of reports, and I won't go in as much depth on them, but they have ones which look at just the religious climate of your community based on a data set called Quadrennium Report. And it's really interesting. I won't go into the background of how they do it, but they can tell you about your community and the percentage of folks who care about particular significant events. So when in Goshen, the one it can break you down, for example, on beliefs in God, beliefs in Jesus, beliefs about social and moral issues, the presence of nuns, none of the above, change in, not Christian, Muslim, Jews, but none, okay? The Christian to non-Christian preferences, the significance of faith to life, the change in significance of faith to life, life concerns and media preferences. So with this batch of information, we can go through and learn what's really important to the people in our community. What do they believe about Jesus? But really where that flies in my mind is when you look at what are they looking for? What are the issues, the life issues that they care about, and how can we meet those needs in their lives? Some of those concerns for Goshen, well, let me give you one that some of us have learned general criteria, but you can see how they apply to your community. One of them would be a report that says, what are the top reasons that people don't want to participate in religious congregations? In Goshen, it is religious people are too judgmental. Religion is too focused on money. They don't trust organized religion. They don't believe in God. They don't trust religious leaders. Strict and inflexible beliefs, disillusionment with the religion. They no longer believe it wasn't relevant to my life, and conflicts within the religious community. Another area that they can give you insights is media preferences. You're trying to reach a new group of people. Where do you reach them? The newspaper? Facebook? Cable news? What about if you go to decide you're going to do television advertising? What network? Fox News, CNN, on down the line. It can help you identify the media preferences for the segment of your your community that you're looking at. Now, we're going to skip ahead. This is where it really becomes exciting. You can now upload the membership of your church to this site. Now, it's only available to your congregation, so your login information or your people details are not shared with others. But some of the things that you can do when you plot your membership, this allows you to really get to know your community and then who we are in comparison to our community and how can we reach out. So some of the things that you can do. Once you have the membership listed, there's a part of this program called the Neighborhood Center, which I think is exciting stuff. You can have your congregation. One of the things our congregation has just started doing in the last couple of months is you can then go in and get a viewpoint of where the new members of your new movers in your community are within the last 6 months. If you have your congregation plotted, you can then call up Sally and ask her to go over to the next block and invite this new community or this new member. And let me go back. No, I think it's forward. Sorry. This is the rooftop view. These are particular households on a based upon I don't remember what the category was, sorry, and I'm skipping around. But then you can go in and click on a household, and you can find out the name of that individual. You can find out how many people are in their household, just some basic information. Now, if you want to, you can do even more work on that. That's a pretty cool thing, to be able to to reach out specifically to the new members in this way. Also, through the neighborhood system, you can say, we were considering starting a new children's ministry. I can say, okay, we're a downtown church, we can say, we want to be primarily neighbors, so we can say, everybody within a 20-minute walk of our church that have children of a particular age group, we can have those houses come up. If it's only a few, we can do but then you can also purchase for 10 cents a name a mailing list of those folks. So you want to do a particular group, you can do that. If you're trying to reach out to, you want to make small groups for your church, you can, if you've plotted your congregation in, you can then go and do that polygon that I talked about, draw a particular box around that particular section, and you can see where your congregation lives by they're all being plotted, and you can create small ministry groups within those areas. Much easier to say, oh, we have this one person that won't be in a neighborhood group that we might not see if we just tried to do it, freehand. It's a really slick piece of identification. You can reach out based upon local religious issues. Some folks have a significant concern about particular kinds of religious issues, moral issues. Again, you can reach out based upon a whole set of demographic categories. And I just think that that's wonderful, because we have the capability of knowing who our neighbors are, a fair amount of detail about their general makeup, what kind of Mosaic group. You can have primary gender, marital status, the age of the head of the household, and there's 7 age groups. You can have education, children in the household by age range, the length of residence at that place, whether they own or rent, the dwelling type, whether it's an apartment or a duplex or whatever. There are 6 categories there. The new movers, as I suggested, the household mosaic code, the racial and ethnic surname filters. All of that can come up, and you can have different kinds of information, and you can run this over and over with different categories until you find ways of engaging your community. I could talk all day, and I know we have agenda. If you want to register for the site, there is a code, or you can email me, and I'll give you that in just a minute, and I will set it up for you. I also would be excited to do training with you in how to do this program and help you do some of the work you would like to do. I really want to encourage you to invest some time playing with this program. It has really profound data sets. It uses Experian groups, the Mosaic groups. It has this quadrennium project, which gives us the religious preferences. Simmons, Synergos, the U.S. data, census data, and a number of others. All of this incredible data is now available to us to impact our congregations. And my email address is there, and please feel free to reach out to me. Are there questions, comments that I could answer? Yeah. No cost to the church. The cost is paid for by the Presbytery. The only charge you could encounter is if you wanted mailing labels And I think those cost 10 cents a piece. If you've done any of the new mover subscription services, that is a very reduced price that is available to us. Others? Yeah. Please do.
We use this MissionInsite in the development of our church information form when we were in the process of finding another pastor. And all of the folks that we interviewed, for a number of them, 90% of the people said we had a phenomenal church information form, and it was based upon the statistics and the analysis that we were able to garner from this very program. It is awesome. It is an absolutely awesome program that I am sure we do not use sufficiently.
We do not. Was that helpful? Yes. I think it's www.MissionInsite. I think it's .com, but I usually just Google, and it's been used so much on my computer, so I'm not sure if it's .com or .org, but it pops right up. So MissionInsite, that's NISITE. Others? Yes.
Words of wisdom of ways not to use things and mistakes.
The number one mistake related to MissionInsite is not to do it. And I really believe that, because we have the capability of getting to know our neighbors in incredible ways. Let me give you another example of something you can do with it. If you're contemplating a capital campaign and you have plotted your numbers or your members, it can analyze the wealth of your congregation. Now, there's some statistical or comments, and it may be wrong occasionally, but it can do incredible things. You do have to recognize that there are some limitations as to how much they know about you. You know, they look at how you spend, what you buy, the age of your house, and such. And so an example where you could get fooled with using this is a story from another congregation, and a congregation hired a new senior pastor. They had this aged, decrepit gymnasium that leaked and was hot, or leaked cold in the winter, hot in the summer, dusty and ugly. They wanted to make it into a kind of a community center specifically for youth, some sports kind of stuff. They had a couple of bathrooms. They were going to add showers, and the church kitchen was down in this area. This was a new pastor that came in. This was something that they had talked about. They had just gotten a few simple artistic drawings to show what could be. And did a congregational dinner one Sunday afternoon, showed the views, and said, you know, if we choose to proceed, the next step would be to come up with about 8,000 to 10,000 for artistic drawings. And they had some ballpark number, but they really couldn't tell until they had an architect. That was a Sunday evening. Monday morning, I was a student intern at this congregation, and the senior pastor asked me to come in because there was an older member of the church who had come in and wanted to know about this project. Now, this gentleman lived very simply, very modest life. He and his wife, he had no children. They lived in the same house for 55 years, and it was a modest home. He hadn't had a new suit in years. He said his suits were still in fine shape, and they were terribly out of style. His wife's clothes were the same way. Everything was neat and well cared for, but old. They didn't spend much money. If you were doing a capital campaign, it would never occur to you to approach this couple for a major gift. His question for the senior pastor and I was, when do you need the money? And we said, well, we haven't identified an architectural firm, so that'll take a couple of months, and we don't know the cost, but we think it'll be $8,000 to $10,000. And he said, no, you don't understand. My wife and I would like to pay for the entire project, up to $2 million. They had no children, no grandchildren. The dream captured their imagination. MissionInsite wouldn't have found that couple. So there can be some errors because they didn't spend. They had it, they just chose not to spend it, and so the data sources didn't show up. So there can be some exceptions to the rule. Other comments, questions? Yes?
My basic understanding of the church that used this back in Tennessee is that this is used by tracking credit card expenditures, how you spend your money, the little cards that get scanned. And I mean, all marketing agencies use this, but it's so when you go to the grocery store and you scan your Kroger card or whatever, and it's all of this data being collected. So this one church decided to, because of the spending in their neighborhood, how much money people were spending more money at the lawn care place, True Value Hardware, than they were at the bookstore. And so they decided to have a guest speaker come in to talk about cause creation and gardening that then affected that community. And they did a mailing in another area that bought lots of books. And so that mailing went to that specific area, and they started a book swap club or something like that.
Absolutely. Great ideas. Anything else?
I just want to tell everybody how easy this is to use. You put in your church's address, you say you want to see a circle of 5 miles, and you just run a report, and then you get a PDF, and the information in the PDF will introduce you to who is around you.
And you'll have that report in about 60 seconds after you give it those 2 questions. The more extensive stuff requires a little bit more, but it's incredible. Yes? I would hope that all of our COM people would be extravagant in their use of it for the churches that they're resourcing. And especially whenever we deal with change of pastors. And the moderator is here, so I'm going to stop. Please contact me. Be delighted to help you.